How would you say investors are playing the field in the unlisted securities segment?
Investors we see on that side of the market tend to be a bit larger in terms of their stakes. They tend to be people who are buying into the company for its long term rather than a portfolio investor who is getting in and out. So we tend to see them taking a longer term perspective, which means they are slower to react to events that are happening on the market.
The shake-offs, to describe the events happening on the equities market specifically, so to speak now, in what ways would you say they may be impacting the unlisted securities segment of the market?
We see they're complementary. Obviously, all markets are complementary with one another. So even on the debt market, it's complementary in some form or another to the main board of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. What we see is the same questions being asked. Is Nigeria going to remain as an economy? What happens after next year? Is there still going to be a banking industry? Is there still going to be oil? Of course, for as long as these questions are...
Is it all gloomy? Is it all gloomy?
These are questions, but for as long as the answers are yes, they will be, then investors on the NASD side of the market tend to say, well, in that case, we're quite pleased to buy into the securities. If, however, you are looking for a shorter gain, then there is every possibility that you'd say, I want to return to cash, hold on my cash for a period of time, and then get back into the market, which I think is going to happen post-election. I believe that there will be quite a few investors coming back into the country, getting back into equities especially in the market.
So what trends are shaping investors' appetite for now?
I think the very first is there's been a slowdown in investments. There's been a sell-off, and because of the sell-off, people are saying, how far can it go? Should I sell? What has slowed that down, though, is the fact that you've seen yields also drop on the debt side of the market, and so that's not a very quick alternative for investors, and so they tend to stay in the equities for a bit longer. I think the fact that the Naira has also been stable for a while has also allowed some people to think, well, if it has been stable, maybe this is a good time for us to sell and buy into some foreign currency for a period of time. So those are the general sentiments that are moving investments either in or out of the market.
So I'm looking at the indices now, all in red. The NSE All Share Index, the NSE 30, banking, consumer goods, industrial goods, even oil and gas, all in the red. So would you say that at this point they are looking specifically to certain sectors to put where is the money going?
As a
rule, it's moving generally away.
As a rule, I generally do not speak about the Nigerian Stock Exchange Index because it's a totally different market from my market, and so I tend not to comment on that market. But it is a guide it's a barometer of the economy. So if they're all in the red, it means that securities are getting cheaper. It means that the time is coming when there would actually be bargains to be made in that market.
Buy time. So let's now move to raising awareness of in the unlisted security segment. What efforts are we seeing at the moment, or are you working on?
Well, the market it's grown to about 38 securities now, of which I'd say 10 of them are pretty large securities that are trading on a regular basis, and then another 8 to 10 are very small securities. However, the OTC market is such that investors are able to bring in their securities and trade them once they're public securities. And so we reach out more to investors, individual investors, to shareholders in all forms, to approach the market and trade their securities. What has slowed down the growth of the market is that some of these securities are actually not registered at SEC, and we have made a rule that we'd only trade securities that are registered with SEC. That way, we're sure we're trading legal securities, so to speak, that can protect the investors.
Give us a sense of your assessment of the performance of your area of the market on a quarterly basis, for this quarter, rather.
This quarter has been quite exciting. We've seen some major takeovers of some companies. We have seen Ensure, for example, was the transaction to purchase Ensure by Alliance was concluded in this quarter. We've also seen some major buy-ins into some of the larger securities, CSCS, Niger Delta, and so on. We've seen a lot of activity there. We've seen some securities that have never traded We've seen activity suddenly starting them. We've also seen some slowdown. So it's only when there's a transaction, then the company comes back into the fore. We tend, as I said, not to see as many portfolio investors, and we tend to see strategic investors, stakeholders who are moving into companies. And so when they're ready to make the transaction, we facilitate it for them. Bottom line is, and our objective is to create more transparency around the trading of securities, and also to make sure that there's a certain kind of liquidity. You have access to liquidity at a price that you're comfortable with, that can be announced at the end of the day.